Imagine a time when most of Europe was shrouded in what historians often call the Dark Ages, a time of stagnation where progress seemed to have halted. But elsewhere, a brilliant light was shining, a beacon of knowledge and civilization that would illuminate the path for future generations. This place was Al-Andalus, the Iberian Peninsula under Muslim rule, and its story is one of the most remarkable yet often overlooked chapters in human history. Today, we're going on a journey back in time to a world where science, art, and philosophy flourished in ways that were simply unimaginable elsewhere. We'll walk the streets of magnificent cities, explore libraries that dwarfed any in the Christian world, and meet the brilliant minds who laid the groundwork for the European Renaissance. This is the story of Al-Andalus, a testament to how knowledge, not conflict, is the true measure of a civilization's greatness. Our story begins in the 8th century. While kingdoms in the north were struggling with instability and intellectual decline, a new power was rising in the south. The Umayyad Caliphate, expanding from Damascus, reached the shores of the Iberian Peninsula. But this was not just a military conquest, it was the dawn of a new era. The conquerors brought with them a culture deeply rooted in the pursuit of knowledge, a tradition inherited from the Golden Age of Baghdad. They established their capital in Córdoba, and in a remarkably short time transformed it into the most dazzling city in Europe. Imagine walking through its streets in the 10th century. You wouldn't find muddy, dark alleyways. Instead, you'd be strolling on paved roads illuminated at night by public lamps, a concept unheard of in London or Paris for centuries to come. The city was a marvel of urban planning, with running water, public baths, hospitals, and breathtaking architecture that blended different cultural influences into a unique and beautiful style. At the heart of Córdoba's intellectual life was its great library. This wasn't just a collection of books. It was a universe of ideas. Under Caliph al-Hakam II, the library was said to house over 400,000 volumes, a staggering number when the largest monastery library in Europe might have had a few hundred at best. Scribes were sent across the known world, to Baghdad, Damascus, and Cairo, to acquire and copy every important text they could find. These weren't just religious texts. They were works of Greek philosophy from Plato and Aristotle, medical treatises from Galen, mathematical and astronomical studies from India and Persia. These ancient works, lost or forgotten in much of Europe, were not just preserved here. They were studied, debated, and built upon. The libraries of Al-Andalus became the guardians of human wisdom, bridging the ancient world with the future. This reverence for knowledge gave rise to an unparalleled academic environment. The universities of Al-Andalus, particularly in cities like Córdoba, Seville, and Toledo, attracted scholars and students from all over the world, Muslims, Christians, and Jews alike. They studied side by side, translating texts, sharing ideas, and engaging in rigorous intellectual debate. This atmosphere of convivencia, or coexistence, fueled an explosion of innovation across every field imaginable. In medicine, physicians like Al-Zahrawi, known in the West as Abul Qasis, revolutionized surgery. He invented over 200 surgical instruments, many of which, like the scalpel and forceps, are still recognizable today. His comprehensive medical encyclopedia, the Al-Tasrif, was a standard textbook for surgeons in Europe for over 500 years. He detailed procedures for everything from setting broken bones to the first recorded description of an ectopic pregnancy. His work was practical, precise, and life-saving. Then there was the world of mathematics. The Arabs introduced the Hindu-Arabic numeral system, the very numbers 0 through 9 that we use every day, to Europe. Imagine trying to do complex calculations with Roman numerals. It was a game changer. Scholars like Al-Khwarizmi, whose name gave us the word algorithm and whose book title gave us algebra, developed systematic ways to solve linear and quadratic equations, laying the foundations for modern mathematics. Astronomy also reached new heights. Observatories were built in cities like Toledo and Seville, equipped with advanced instruments like the astrolabe, which was perfected in Al-Andalus. Astronomers meticulously charted the stars, corrected the calculations of the ancient Greeks, and created incredibly accurate astronomical tables. These tables were later used by European astronomers, including Copernicus, to develop their own models of the universe. The stars weren't just objects of wonder. They were part of a divine, orderly cosmos that could be understood through reason and mathematics. And what about philosophy? While much of Europe was limited to theological discourse, thinkers in Al-Andalus were engaged in a vibrant dialogue with the great Greek philosophers. The most famous of these was Ibn Rushd, or Averroes. He wrote extensive commentaries on the works of Aristotle, attempting to reconcile Aristotelian logic with Islamic faith. His powerful argument was that reason and religion were not in conflict, but were two different paths to the same truth. When his works were translated into Latin, they sent shockwaves through European universities, challenging scholastic thought and paving the way for the Renaissance and the Age of Enlightenment. This intellectual ferment was reflected in the arts and architecture. The Great Mosque of Córdoba and the Alhambra Palace in Granada are enduring monuments to this era. They showcase a stunning mastery of geometry, intricate calligraphy, and a deep understanding of light and space. The arches, the delicate tilework, the serene courtyards with their fountains, they all speak of a culture that valued beauty, order, and tranquility. This wasn't just building. It was creating paradise on earth. Beyond the grand monuments, innovation was woven into the fabric of daily life. The people of Al-Andalus were masters of agriculture and irrigation. They introduced new crops to Europe: oranges, lemons, sugarcane, rice, and cotton. They developed sophisticated techniques like crop rotation and complex water channels known as acequias to turn arid land into lush, productive farms. This agricultural revolution not only fed the growing cities, but also created immense wealth. So what happened to this incredible civilization? Like all great empires, its decline was a slow and complex process, involving internal divisions and external pressures. By the 11th century, Al-Andalus began to fracture into smaller, competing kingdoms. This fragmentation made them vulnerable to the Christian kingdoms from the north, who began a centuries-long campaign known as the Reconquista. But the legacy of Al-Andalus did not vanish with its political power. As cities like Toledo were retaken, European scholars flocked there, eager to get their hands on the vast libraries. This led to the Great Translation movement of the 12th century. Teams of scholars, often working in multicultural groups, translated thousands of Arabic books on science, medicine, and philosophy into Latin. This flood of knowledge into Europe was like water on a barren land. It reignited intellectual curiosity, challenged old dogmas, and provided the tools for a new age of discovery. The first European universities in Bologna, Paris, and Oxford were founded and grew based on these translated texts. The Renaissance, the scientific revolution, the Enlightenment. It's impossible to imagine these world-changing movements without the foundations laid in Al-Andalus. The story of Scandalus teaches us a profound lesson. It shows that progress is not the property of any single culture or religion. It thrives where there is curiosity, tolerance, and a shared passion for knowledge. While Europe was in darkness, the lamps were burning brightly in Córdoba. The scholars of Al-Andalus were not just conquerors. They were architects of knowledge, guardians of wisdom, and pioneers who lit the way for the rest of the world. Their legacy proves a timeless truth, that the most lasting victory is not won with the sword but with the pen. It's found not in conquering lands, but in expanding the horizons of the human mind. The echoes of Al-Andalus can still be found in our language, our science, our food, and our culture. A quiet reminder of a golden age that helped shape the modern world. Thank you so much for joining me on this journey through history. If you found this story as fascinating as I do, please give this video a thumbs up, and consider subscribing to the channel for more explorations into the amazing chapters of our shared human story. We'd love to have you with us. See you next time.